There's a moment in doubles that happens more often than we like to admit. A mistake is made, the point is lost, and suddenly someone's ego inflates like a balloon stretched too thin. Their back stiffens. Their expression sharpens. They sigh loudly enough for everyone to hear. They glare at their partner, maybe subtly, maybe not so subtly. And in that moment, the match transforms. It's no longer about teamwork. It's no longer about rhythm. It's no longer about enjoying the game. It becomes a quiet war between two people standing on the same side of the net, but emotionally miles apart. Why does this happen? Why does the ego swell so quickly, so aggressively, when a partner misses a shot? Why does the atmosphere turn cold, sharp, and uncomfortable, even though this is supposed to be a sport built on joy, cooperation, and connection? The truth is unsettling but deeply human. The ego hates vulnerability. And doubles exposes vulnerability more intensely than singles ever will. When you miss a shot in singles, you feel disappointed. But when your partner misses a shot, something much more primitive gets triggered. You feel embarrassed. You feel exposed. You feel judged, even if no one is judging. You feel like someone else has made you look bad. And when a fragile ego meets that feeling, it does what fragile egos always do. It attacks. This is why the blamer emerges. The blamer is not a villain. The blamer is a shield, a wall, a mask, a desperate attempt to avoid looking inward. Because if they blame you, they don't have to face their own errors, their own insecurity, their own lack of control. Blaming becomes a way to avoid the painful truth that tennis, especially doubles, requires emotional maturity, self-awareness, and humility. 3 things the ego struggles with. The puffed-up ego is not confidence. It is armor. It is fear dressed as superiority. And when that ego takes over, the behavior becomes almost unacceptable. The sighs, the eye rolls, the complaining, the subtle humiliation, the constant reminders of your mistakes, the tone of voice that says, "I'm better than you," the coldness that makes the court feel like a battlefield instead of a partnership. If you've ever played with someone who blames, you know exactly how miserable that behavior feels. It takes the fun out of the game. It crushes any sense of cooperation. It makes you shrink inward. You start playing safe. You stop taking risks. You avoid calling balls. You hesitate at the net. You lose your instinct, and everything becomes heavy. Not because of the ball, but because of the emotional pressure their ego creates. But here's the important and uncomfortable question. Why does the blamer behave this way? Why does winning become more important than fun, connection, or friendship? Because for the blamer, winning is not just a score. Winning is validation. Winning is protection. Winning is proof that they are competent, valuable, worthy. Losing threatens the ego. And when the ego feels threatened, it lashes out. This makes the blamer's behavior look arrogant. But the emotion underneath is actually fear. Not the fear of losing the match, but the fear of losing their identity. The blamer often ties their self-worth directly to performance. This is why they cannot tolerate their partner's mistake. Because in their mind, the partner's mistake reflects their own worth. They are not just trying to win the match. They are trying to win the story they tell themselves about who they are. For some players, tennis is the only place where they feel powerful. The only place where they feel seen. The only place where they feel in control. When that sense of control slips away, even briefly, the ego panics. And instead of acknowledging that panic, the blamer pushes it outward onto you. This is when the friendship begins to erode. This is when joy collapses. This is when the match becomes suffocating. But why doesn't the blamer realize this? Why don't they see how destructive their behavior is? Because the ego blinds them. It whispers that they are right. It tells them that their partner should have played better. It convinces them that pointing fingers is justified. It hides the fact that the blamer is actually playing scared. Scared of being judged, scared of being seen as weak, scared of losing something much bigger than a point. Blaming temporarily protects the ego, but it permanently damages the partnership. It creates distance. It shuts down communication. It replaces trust with tension. And it makes tennis, a sport meant to bring people together, feel like a test no one consented to take. When the ego takes over, the priority shifts. Fun disappears. Friendship fades. Human connection gets overshadowed by the desperate need to avoid emotional discomfort. Winning becomes the only thing that matters. Not because the player loves winning, but because they can't tolerate how losing makes them feel. This is why so many tennis friendships fall apart. Why good partners avoid each other after matches. Why mixed doubles couples stop playing together. Why teams crumble despite talent. Because the ego, when left unchecked, cares more about avoiding shame than maintaining a bond. But here's the gentle truth. The blamer's behavior is not truly about you. It's about the emotional landscape inside them. A landscape full of pressure, fear, old memories, and unspoken expectations. Many players grew up in environments where mistakes were punished, where vulnerability was mocked, where performance equaled love. So they learned to protect themselves at all costs. They learned to push the blame outward. If you've ever been blamed, it hurts. But understanding the psychology doesn't excuse the behavior. It simply reveals the human frailty behind it. Now, here is something worth reflecting on. Why do you feel hurt when blamed? Because deep down, you want to belong. You want to be respected. You want to contribute. And the moment someone treats you as the reason for failure, it taps into your own insecurities. This is the trap of doubles. Both people bring their inner stories to the court, and those stories collide. So what should you do when facing a blamer? Start by understanding your own boundaries. You are not responsible for their ego. You are not responsible for their emotions. And you are not responsible for carrying their shame. You deserve partners who see you as a teammate, not a scapegoat. You deserve a court environment that feels safe, not suffocating. And you deserve to play tennis for the joy of movement, the beauty of cooperation, the excitement of shared strategy, not the fear of being humiliated. Before we close, here is your invitation to reflect honestly. Have you ever blamed your partner? And in that moment, what were you actually trying to protect? Your pride? Your image? Your sense of control? Understanding the psychology behind blame doesn't excuse the behavior, but it gives you the emotional power to break the cycle. Whether you are the one being blamed or the one doing the blaming, here is your CTA. If this message resonated with you, subscribe to the channel for deeper tennis psychology topics that help you understand both yourself and the players around you. Share this episode with someone you play doubles with. It may open a conversation that changes your partnership forever. And in the comments, tell me honestly, why do you think winning sometimes becomes more important than friendship or fun? Your insight might help someone else look at their own ego with more clarity. And now, the closing message. You are not the mistakes you make. You are not the mistakes your partner makes. And you are not the ego that flares up in moments of pressure. Beneath every sigh, every glare, every moment of blame lies a human being who just wants to feel safe, valued, and enough. When you understand this, the game transforms. Doubles becomes not a battle of egos, but a space where two imperfect human beings learn to breathe, trust, and move together. And perhaps self-discovery, not victory, is the win that truly lasts.